arcade heroes.
Star Trek's swashbuckling space adventures have long been a source of influence in media, with interactive experiences like arcades being no exception. While the first official Star Trek game wouldn't appear until 1982, throughout the 1970s you could find the spaceships that looked very much like the Starship Enterprise or a Klingon battlecruiser making appearances in games like Cinematronics' Space Wars or Atari's Starship One and many others. Sega's 1982 release of Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator was a superb take on how to bring the franchise into arcades. It was also the last time we would see the Star Trek name for a while outside of the numerous, and I mean numerous, pinball efforts. For whatever reason, the franchise has just gravitated towards pinball better than it has the video side. Star Trek Voyager's the only other notable video game to carry the official Star Trek license in recent memory. There was also a VR game that appeared in Dave & Buster's locations, but I'm not sure how widespread or how well it did. So it was a little bit of a surprise when we heard about Star Trek Battleground by Raw Thrills back in July of 2019. This new Star Trek game was spotted on a location test in the Chicago area where it was playable for some time before disappearing into the ether. Location tests help developers determine the viability of a concept, allowing them to collect feedback, make improvements, and bring it to a point where it's ready to produce, or trash entirely if the issues are too numerous to overcome. In the case of Star Trek Battleground, Raw Thrills would not say what reasons were behind the game's cancellation, but I did wonder about it when the game didn't make an appearance at IAPA 2019 in November of that year. Fortunately, I've been given some screenshot media from the producer of the game, so we can break it down a little further. Before I share those, however, let's take a look at the cabinet a little closer. You can see from this photo that it had a distinctive design, using the saucer section of the Enterprise as a canopy above the players. Now, there was a reason for this canopy, as the game used something that is still a little unusual among arcade games, a projector. In this case, the canvas that Raw Thrills had designed for the game was also unique. Instead of just being a flat white surface, certain points had raised sections. This game gave the game some depth by dabbling into projection mapping. If you aren't familiar with projection mapping, then the most likely place you'll find such tech is in a modern, well-funded museum. It's where the image is wrapped around an object and make it look like the 3D object has animations on it. Theme parks like at Disney World, Disneyland also use this technology extensively. In the case of Star Trek Battleground, it had the scoreboard portions of the playfield raised, the saucer sections of each player's Enterprise also raised, 3 small planets on the playfield, and a Borg meter at the center top. This was all done in a way to provide for a seamless look where you would have the imagery properly bent over each raised piece. Now to the screenshots, starting with the title screen. It's important to note that this was primarily designed as a Videmption game or video redemption game, so the goal was to play for tickets more than it was for points, although you still did have a score. If there was an amusement-only mode, Raw Thrills never said so. The style of gameplay that was going to be used was similar in nature to those fishing arcade games that have been prevalent out there, particularly in places like China where you have manufacturers who make nothing but fishing games. But instead of hooking a fish, your goal was to blast all enemy spacecraft that would be randomly generated and placed onto the playfield. Destroy enough big targets to fill the Borg meter, where you would then face off against a dreaded Borg cube. If you could take it out, you would win the ticket jackpot bonus. Collect your tickets, get your prizes, and then go at it again. The game controlled using a spinner device and a single button, which was used to fire phasers. One pick does show a photon torpedo, but I'm not sure how that was going to be activated, probably just as a temporary power-up. You can also see one of the power-ups showing a bunch of phaser blasts coming out of the Borg meter in action in this shot. The game used a mixture of ships from the original series, from Star Trek The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. Most people have heard of the Klingons, Romulans, and the Borg. All of those are there, as well are lesser known aliens like the Ferengi. While there's a small possibility that the game could be resurrected down the road, I doubt it will happen, so I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. The same is likely for Tetris Dimensions, which was also tested last year, but was canned after a poor performance, where the developers saw that a lot of people that would approach the game had no clue how to play Tetris, which was very surprising. And this also shows that even big-name licenses aren't a guarantee for a success on any game. That said, I'm sure we'll see another Trek hitting video arcades, it's just a matter of time. What do you think about this cancel game from what we've been shown? Live long and prosper until the next video.